Hey y'all, welcome to Go Be Fearless. Have a question for you today. How many of you enjoy watching scary movies? I do. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm Baptist. I watch horror movies. There, got it all out on the table. There's a reason though I enjoy watching them, okay? There's an excuse for what I'm doing. My mother actually taught me how to watch them and how to fall in love with them. You know, she is a dear, sweet Christian woman, very respected in her community. But the fact of the matter is, she showed me, my brother, and sister these scary movies when we were very little. I mean, I'm talking like 5 years old or something. But there's something worse that I need to tell y'all about today. Not only did she watch scary movies with us, but my mama enjoyed scaring us. This is what she would do. She would say to her dear sweet children, y'all go brush your teeth and get in bed, and I'll be in there in just a minute. So you would brush your teeth and you would get in bed, and about the moment you'd start dozing off, wah, Mama would jump out of the closet, scare you half to death. That's what she did. Thought it was real funny too. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, let me tell you about her trick number 2. Same thing, picture it in your mind. Brushed your teeth, got in bed, all cozied up, waiting for Mama to come in, and she climbs out from under the bed. Now, I'm a mama myself, and I've always felt like your children need to feel safe. They don't need to be afraid of the dark. They don't need to think there's a monster living in their closet or certainly something living under their bed. But I want to tell you all, my mama was the monster under the bed. I'm pretty sure if me, my brother, and sister had known about DHR and had made a phone call, things would have changed around our house. Can you imagine if my mama had Google and could just put in like scare tactics, what all she could have come up with? I mean, we'd have been traumatized for the rest of our life. Well, that leads me to talk about fear. You know, what is fear? Fear, we know, and I hear it on the song, I hear it in that song on the radio all the time. Fear, he is a liar. Do you know why that song says fear, he is a liar? Because it's the devil. We know the source of that. We know where that comes from. Do you know what fear does to us though? Other than making us sweaty and making our neck turn red and our heart kind of race, or maybe your stomach does flips during the day because you're just worried about something. Well, that's what fear does. Fear creates doubt. It creates anxiety in our lives. It results in low self-image. You know the lie that I tend to fall for? I tend to fall for the lie that Satan tells me, you know, your stuff's really not that big. In the grand comparison of everything everybody else is going through, your stuff is just not that important. But that is a lie. I know better than that. You know better than that. You know, there's no one like our God. There's nothing too small for him. And I have been chosen by God, so I am very important in his plan for the day, right? Very important. I have to remind myself of that. I don't know if you have to or not. You know, fear is just an unpleasant thought. You just constantly worry. And you know, I'm sure you have stuff. I have stuff that I struggle with. But fear is always going to show up in those challenges, in those daily struggles, in those times where we fall a little bit in the valley or feeling a little, you know, not our best. Fear is going to show up. Let me tell you what fearless is. Fearless is a verb. It's a call to action. That's what it is. It's about pick yourself up and go do something about it because you were chosen by God and he sends himself before you and his army. So fearless is a call to action. Fearless is not the absence of fear. In fact, fearless is living in spite of all of that. You can overcome it because God is in control. I'm going to give you an example of this. If you haven't read this in a while, I want you to go and read Matthew 14, 22 through 23. Actually, 22 through 33. This is the story about when Jesus walks on the sea. So kind of sit back and picture what is happening. All these multitudes of people, we're talking thousands of people, are gathered around to hear Jesus preach. They've been there a long time, and they begin to get hungry. Now, back in those days, you couldn't call Domino's and have them deliver pizza. Chick-fil-A wasn't going to show up with the Chick-fil-A box. There was no Nukes around the corner. These people were hungry. So a little boy shows up and he says, Jesus, I think I can help. And he gave Jesus 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. I'm not sure that would even feed me. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread. And what do we know Jesus did? He fed a multitude of people with that little. He just kept giving out fish and just kept giving out bread and just kept giving out fish until everyone was full. It was a wonderful day. The disciples were there. They were able to witness all of that. I mean, can you imagine? I can't even imagine seeing that miracle live, watching it happen. So it'd been a long day, and the multitudes of people were beginning to leave. And Jesus tells his disciples, I want you to go get on this boat and go ahead and get into the sea, and I'm going to meet you on the other side. So the disciples did that. They climbed aboard the boat. They began to paddle out into the sea. And Jesus, we know, went out on his own so he could pray. And he prayed and he prayed. Well, here's where fear showed up. Just when you think everything's good and wonderful, fear shows up. These disciples are out in the middle of the sea, and Hurricane Michael shows up. I'm not talking it started drizzling. I'm not talking about that afternoon southern rain we get in the summertime, right? I am talking about lightning and thunder, and they're in the sea, and the waves are just rocking and rolling, and they're coming in on the side of that boat. And these disciples were terrified. I'm talking fear with an exclamation point behind it. They were in the middle of a hurricane trying to survive. Now, to make matters worse, as if you could, the Bible says that this happened during the 4th watch. Do you know what that means? That means these disciples had been out with Jesus all day. They were probably exhausted. They're out paddling in that boat, and the hurricane shows up sometime between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. Well, I don't know about you. I'm a morning person, but not like a 3 o'clock in the morning person. My eyes would be blurry, my head would hurt. I wouldn't be able to see things clearly. Well, that's what was going on with these disciples. Because, guys, this really happened. Well, in the middle of that storm, what do you think happened next? Out in the midst, Thomas saw something. Old doubting Thomas says, hey, y'all, look out there, look. Do y'all see that? Do you see what I see? Guys, there's a ghost out there. Now, every time an angel shows up, or Jesus appears, or there's even a thought of a ghost, you'll always see in the Bible, and they were afraid. They were afraid. The disciples were terrified. Doubting Thomas was the ringleader of all this fear. He's just terrifying the people on the boat like it wasn't bad enough. So he's like, there's a ghost out there. There's a ghost. Well, Peter comes to the edge of the boat, and he's like, where, Thomas? Where? Now, at this point in time, I would be paddling out of there. If I thought there was a ghost, I wouldn't be calling my friends over to look. I'd be like getting out of Dodge. But not Peter. Peter comes to the edge of the boat, and he's like, where, Thomas? Where? Thomas says, right over there. Look, it's a ghost. Peter said, Thomas, that's not a ghost. That's Jesus. That's Jesus out there standing on the water. Now, this type A personality that I have, I'd have been like getting everybody up and at them, and we would have been paddling over. We're going to save Jesus. Come on, guys, we're going to do it. As if Jesus really needs saving. Well, that's not what Peter did. Peter looked out over that sea, and he saw Jesus, and he fixed his eyes upon Jesus. And he tells the disciples, calm down, calm down. It's Jesus. But here's the part of the story that I love. The part of the story that I love is Peter. Buddy, Peter was all in. I mean, he was all in. When he said he was committed to following Jesus, he was in, buddy. He looks over across that sea at Jesus and he says, Lord, if that is really you, command me to come out on this sea with you. Think about that for just a moment. Think about the things that you ask for when you pray to Jesus. You pray for to have a good day. You pray for those who are sick. You pray that, you won't be nervous about a test that's coming out. Peter says, Jesus, if that's you, Call me out in the middle of this hurricane and let me walk on the water with you. You're talking about a man of faith. Well, you know what Jesus said. Jesus called for Peter. He said, come, Peter, come out here. And that's what Peter did. And Jesus said, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just keep your eyes on me. So Peter steps out, one foot over the other. And he steps out on that sea. And he has his eyes fixed on Jesus. Now keep in mind, Hurricane Michael, it's still happening behind him. So what do you think happened to Peter? He became distracted. He started looking over here at the waves. The boat started rocking him and he lost his balance. And then it starts lightning and thundering in the distance and he kind of shrivels up. Well, his eyes were no longer fixed on Jesus. So when he stepped over that boat, you know what happened to Peter? He sunk like a rock. He sunk. He fell under the water. He's beginning to try to swim and save himself, and he's getting to where he's about to drown. And he's like, Jesus, Jesus, save me, save me. Matthew 14:22-33. It's a very, very exciting chapter in the whole book of the Bible. Lots of action. You just have to picture this. He is drowning. Well, that's what happens to us in our life. The minute we step up and say, Jesus, we're going to follow you, we are all in. We get about halfway in and we start getting distracted by what's going on social media. We get distracted about how busy our weekend's going to be. We get distracted because work starts piling up. We get distracted because we have tryouts for Cheer Squad coming up. All of the world's distractions keep us from having our eyes fixed on Jesus. And we begin to sink and we begin to drown. And we begin to try to save ourselves before we call out and say, Lord, save us, save us. It's the same thing that happened to Peter. It's the same thing. But you know what Jesus did? Jesus answered him again. And he said, Peter. He reached out his hand to him. Peter, I'm here. Take hold of me. I'm here. Peter didn't hear him the first time. Peter, I'm here. I'm here. And he's reaching his hand out. Peter finally hears and he reaches God's hand. Jesus pulls him up and he walks across that water. And you know what Jesus said to him? He said, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt me? Well, the disciples are watching this happen. They gather around, they begin to worship him, and they say, truly, you are the Son of God. Well, I'm here to tell you that when you have stuff going on, when you have challenges in your life, when fear shows up and tells you that it's not that significant of a problem for Jesus, it's not big enough, and you begin to waller in self-pity, remember Jesus is right there. Do what Peter did, just call for him and say, Jesus, I need you, I need you. And he will reach that hand out every time and lift you up. So I want you to think about that today as you go out into the world. Do not let fear sway you from having your eyes fixed on Jesus. In fact, I'm going to leave you with these 3 words. Go out today and go be fearless.